Hi everybody, I'm Kevin Hoagland from Minelab USA. Today we're in the Northern Nevada gold fields where we're going to test and share with you the Minelab Eureka Gold. The Eureka Gold is the most powerful VLF gold detector on the marketplace, featuring 3 separate frequencies to be able to hunt small targets close to the surface and the ability to go very deep to find larger, more conductive targets. So let's take some time, go over to the Minelab studio and share with you all of the features of the Eureka Gold. Two features and 2 settings on the Eureka Gold that I really wanted to share with you in the studio and not out in the field are the sensitivity and the tone control. Both of these are very, very important, and they will actually make a huge difference in the way that you prospect with this machine. Now, let's talk about sensitivity first. Sensitivity should be set to the ground mineralizations each and every time that you go out. What you do is when you've got the machine turned on, you've got your threshold set, take your sensitivity knob, hold the coil about 1.5 to 2 inches above the ground, and turn it either up or down until you get rid of or come into a little bit of background noise. If you're turning it up and you get a little bit of background noise, your sensitivity is now set too high. Come back just a little bit. Match the detector to the ground mineralization. That's all there is. And that will give you better depth and better sensitivity, meaning more targets and cleaner signals. Now, the next setting, and what I think is probably the most important setting on the Eureka Gold or a lot of the Minelab detectors, is the tone control. The tone control on this detector allows me to adjust this machine to optimize it to my personal hearing. I've got a story that I've told a lot. I had a gentleman that, back when I was actually as a dealer, I had a gentleman that came into my shop and purchased a machine. Now, this machine, the tone control was actually on the back of the detector. And he had taken the detector and went home, and like a lot of guys, had gone out and played with everything and started twisting all the knobs and got back there and changed the tone. He came into the shop the following week, and this is the worst case scenario that I've ever seen, but it also really drove home the point of what Minelab does. He came in, was talking about how the machine would not work. I took the machine, put it in the rack, turned it on, and everybody in the shop heard the tone except him. He was a gunner on a battleship and had actually lost an entire range of his hearing. That's the worst case scenario that I've ever seen. With this machine, each and every time that you go out, what I want you to do, put your headphones on, set your threshold, set your sensitivity, and right before you go hunt, close your eyes, think about something else, grab the tone knob, and adjust this tone until the machine sounds like it's getting louder. Once you get to that point where it sounds like it's getting louder, stop. We haven't adjusted the volume. All we've adjusted is the pitch and actually what you hear. With this detector, you can optimize the detector to your personal hearing. Minelab, the world's best metal detection technologies. Let's take the Eureka Gold, share with you how simple the machine is actually to set up and go out and use the most powerful VLF gold detector on the marketplace. Setting up the Eureka Gold, extremely simple. First, we're going to turn the machine on, and we're going to establish a slight threshold. Now, what I'd like for you to have as a threshold is something that sounds kind of like a mosquito buzzing by your ear. So just that da-da-da, da-da-da-da, and you'll notice that that is always rhythmic. Now, from there, we go into setting up the frequency. Setting the frequency is very simple. The Eureka Gold has 3 separate frequencies. 20 kilohertz for good all-around hunting, 6.4 kilohertz for going very deep to find the more conductive targets, and 60 kilohertz that will work extremely well close to the surface and find those little tiny targets that a lot of detectors will miss. We're going to start out in 20 kilohertz. 20 kilohertz is a good all-around detecting frequency. Now, as I'm out here detecting, when I find something, that becomes my patch area. And I will hunt the area in 20 kilohertz. I'll make my grid, and I'll hunt it north and south, east and west, northwest to southeast, and I will cover the ground completely. Then I'll flip into the 6.4 kilohertz to get the maximum depth that this detector is capable of doing, finding those larger targets. And I'll hunt it in the same directions. I'll hunt the north, south, east, west, northwest to southeast. And then once I'm finished with that, I'll flip the machine into 60 kilohertz, re-ground balancing after each time, and then re-hunt the same area again. When I've hunted that, and I've completed hunting that, it's like hunting with 3, sometimes even 4 different machines. So we're going to start out in 20 kilohertz again. Once we've established and found an area, we'll flip to 6.4 kilohertz. And then finally we'll hunt the area in 60 kilohertz. The next setting that we deal with is the ground speed, or the ground tracking. We have 3 settings on the Eureka Gold. We have slow, we have fast, and we have fixed. The slow setting is for mild to moderately mineralized soil. And when we talk about mineralization, remember it's the iron that's in the soil. Once I get into the ground area, I'll establish whether I can hunt in slow tracking or if I'm going to have to go to fast tracking. It all depends upon the feedback that the ground gives me as I'm listening to it in my headphones. So as I get ready to hunt the area, I'll listen, I'll hear the background noise, and that is the ground mineralization. Now, I've hunted this area in the past, and I pretty well know that we're going to have to be in the fast ground balance because it's extremely mineralized. Now, the fixed setting on here is also like a pinpoint setting. It eliminates or it turns off all ground balancing, and the machine is set to where I last ground balanced. The Eureka Gold uses 3 different types of signaling structures. We have the normal sound, which is where you're going to normally hunt when you're just out hunting an area. We also have the boost. Now, where I use this the most is that when I'm out hunting, if I hear a signal and I boot dig it just a little bit, and I go back through and it still sounds like a signal, I'll flip into the boost, into the boost mode, and if that signal increases, then I know that it's actually a target. Now, a lot of times when I flip into the boost, if there's no change in the signal whatsoever, I'll give it a couple of more boot digs, maybe a rake with the pick, and if the signal hasn't changed at all, it's ground mineralization. Now, the fine mode also on this machine is used for very, very shallow hunting. Generally, I'll use the fine mode when I'm in the 60 kilohertz, as it'll give a little bit more of a peak signal to those really small targets. Now let's take a look at the iron discrimination. The Eureka Gold has a iron discrimination only, meaning that pull tabs, anything else that is not man-made iron is going to be found with the detector. This is simply because when you try to discriminate out too many types of targets, you'll actually begin to miss gold. Now, to use that feature, we simply flip into the discrimination mode, and with an iron target on the ground, we can swing over that target and use the discrimination knob. Now, if you get very aggressive with the discrimination, you can blank out some gold targets. I recommend, I'm an all metal kind of guy. I like to hunt in the all metal mode. Now, if you're hunting in an extremely trashy area, make sure you've got a good magnet on your pick, and generally that's all you need. But if you are going to hunt in discrimination, do not be aggressive with your discrimination. Use it very, very modestly, and just, once you find your first boot tack or your first small nail or something in those lines, take that target out and leave everything else in. The last 3 features that I want to share with you are the ground balance, setting the sensitivity, and also the tone. So let's do ground balancing first. Ground balancing the Eureka Gold is extremely simple. We simply turn the detector on, and then we just pump it up and down. And you'll hear that almost immediately the machine went to the same sound going up and going down. That's all we're looking for. Now, if you're in the slow tracking and you ground balance the detector and it will not even out, if the machine won't ground balance, flip it in the fast track. That's all there is to it. Now let's talk about the sensitivity. Sensitivity is the power that you're putting into the ground. Now, a lot of people think that when you grab a detector, the first thing you do is you crank the sensitivity all the way up. and that's not necessarily the right way to do it. You always want to match the sensitivity going into the ground to the ground conditions themselves. And the detector will always tell you where it can work and where it works and finds its very best spot, kind of finding the sweet spot in the ground. You do this by simply holding the detector. We're going to put a little bit more threshold into it so you can hear it. Not a lot. We'll hold the detector an inch or so above the surface of the ground, and we're going to turn the sensitivity knob down. Now, right now it's really stable, but listen as I come up on the sensitivity. You hear the detector starting to get a little unstable? We've actually gone beyond our point of stability or our point of ground, the power that we should be putting in the ground. So I'm going to back that off just a little bit. And you can hear it just straighten right out. When I describe this to people when they're going out to hunt, when you've got your headphones on and you're getting ready to go, listen to the threshold, because your threshold, when properly set, will always be a rhythmic sound. You'll have that na-na-na, na-na-na, that rhythm of the threshold. Listen to the sound that sounds like it's coming from back here, and that's going to be your ground sensitivity. So you'll hear almost a sound that sounds like it's coming from behind you, and as that starts to waver, and it's not the threshold, you start to hear it waver on the back side of that. That is the ground noise that you're hearing. You adjust the sensitivity to match that. In some areas, even if you turn the sensitivity down, you'll be surprised and shocked at how deep you'll actually dig targets. Think of it this way. If I've got my sensitivity turned way up, I've got a fire hose going into the ground. Now, when a signal leaves the coil, it's beginning to decay. And after it goes down and it hits a target, especially gold, which is just such a soft, malleable target, it absorbs an incredible amount of that signal, and it's not allowing a lot of that signal to go back up. There's just simply not a return. So I've got a fire hose going into the ground, and I've got a garden hose coming out of the ground. Which one's going to win? By equalizing out your sensitivity on the detector, you're going to get the maximum depth, the maximum signal response, and you will dig targets that are going to be clearer, louder, and sharper in your sounds. So now let's talk about tone. The tone control on the Eureka Gold is tone on any gold machine, actually tone on any detector, is to me one of the most important features. And we're not talking about target ID tone, we're actually talking about the sound that you hear through your threshold, the sound of your threshold. Now with the Eureka Gold, we can adjust that threshold sound and match the pitch to our hearing. If you go out and you do things like, we've been driving for the last week all over the western states and doing different things in different areas. Well, I've got a lot of road noise, and as I travel, and the more that I travel, you know, my hearing's affected by that. If I fly a lot, my hearing's affected by that. By using the tone control, I can actually optimize the detector each time I use it for my personal hearing. So what I'd like for you to do is when you get ready to go hunt with your Eureka Gold, after you have your threshold set, you've got the machine ground balance, you've got everything done, with your headphones on, take the tone control and just turn it to a lower pitch or a higher pitch to where the machine actually sounds like it gets louder. It's not getting louder. We're not changing the volume. All we're doing is changing the tone. We've optimized this tone for your personal hearing. That's it. I'm going to reset my tone. That works the very best for me. Reset my threshold. Check my ground balance real quick. I'm plugging in my headphones, folks. It's time to go hunt. I've hunted this area up here on this little ridge. There's lots of detector holes where people have come through and been digging. And what I wanted to try to do was come down onto this. There's lots of good sign here, and I've hit a couple of spots where the bedrock was just a couple of inches. So what I'm going to come back in here and do is I'm going to hunt this area again right here on this gully and I'm going to hunt this into 60 kilohertz. I'm not really looking for a lot of depth at this point. What I'm mainly looking for is small targets. And when I look at the mineralization around here, everything is perfect. I mean, we've got great mineralization. Everything is there. Well, the old timers were definitely here working at one point in time, and there's been some other people out here with detectors. And there was a couple of little dry wash piles on the other side. So let's see how we do here. Got a nice little signal. Pretty noisy. Okay, I've moved that signal out of the hole. Now, before I get in there and start digging, I'm just going to take my pick with my magnet on the end of it, run it through there. Let's go ahead and just get that signal out of the way. Now, any of you that saw the Xterra 70 video, I talked a lot about using a plastic scoop. And you know, I can't stress this enough, especially when we hunt in some of the desert southwest areas. These scoops make it so much easier to get your targets. More importantly, it'll actually save your hands a lot of times. And I've shared this on the Xterra 70 video that we did a few years ago. But I was out hunting, and I got a really nice signal. And I dug down, I didn't have a scoop with me, and I reached down, the first handful didn't have anything there. Second handful didn't have anything. The third handful, the signal was in my hand as I went across the coil, but I had this horrible burning pain in my hand, and when I opened it up, I had a scorpion stuck to my hand. Try to always remember, bring your plastic scoop. Well, another sign of civilization. Got a nice big iron nut there. So let's keep hunting. We've been hunting this wash for a time. I'm really starting to like this. We've got little inside bends. And you know, I know there's not a lot of mineralization in here, but this is a very, very fast moving little stream. And more importantly, I see a lot of detector holes. There's one there, there was another one all close to the surface. And this, we've got this inside bend and we've got another inside bend. So, you know, depending upon how the water flowed, and if you look at it, that looks like a very slow area as the water came around. That is a good looking, good sounding little target noise. I'm going to flip into my boost signal just to get a better listen. Oh yeah, definitely need to dig this signal. Now, when you're digging, you hear those soft signals like that. You want to make sure that you don't fling your dirt everywhere. Always check your magnet. There's a lot of ground mineralization in that, which is a good sound, but the target's also in here as well. So we're going to take our material and start pulling it out in our scoop. And running it across our coil. And we're listening. Okay. That signal's now in my scoop. I'll take this material and half it out. Still there. Now I'm going to check this dirt in my hand. Okay, this target's no longer in my scoop. It's there, not there. Let's see what we got. It's a little bit too much dirt. Oh, this is what I like. Hear that sound? Here we go. It's a dirty little nugget. Not very deep, but right there in that iron mineralization. That's a beautiful little piece. That's what gets me excited. I'm going to stay here for a lot longer and hunt this for a long time. I'm going to put that in my... I'm going to clean that up a little bit. Oh, that's pretty. That is probably less than 5 grains. That's less than 1/3 of a gram. I mean, it barely has any weight. It's got a lot of air to it. And the gold out here has been known to be really kind of, almost what they call a chevron gold. So this is the perfect gold for that. It looks like a little bit of a chevron, you know, just kind of the top of a chevron that's been cut off of it. Now that, I mean, even though it's a little tiny piece of gold, that tells me beyond any shadow of a doubt that there's more gold here. So I'm going to just keep working this. I'm going to continue hunting it in the 60 kilohertz on this little wash. And then I'm going to grid this area off again, and I'm going to start hunting it in other frequencies again. Who knows? I might even go get the 4500 and come back. Now I'm going to recheck my hole. And you hear that ground noise, and I'm going to take the machine out of boost. And that's not the target signal anymore, that's the ground mineralization. Now, this ground mineralization is getting a little bit hotter as I get up further up, so I'm going to go from my slow track into fast track. Now, as the ground mineralization or the iron in the black sand becomes heavier, you need to speed up the tracking speed or the automatic ground balancing. So I'm going to go ahead and flip the machine into the fast ground balance, pump it up and down. It immediately stabilized, but now listen. Okay, you hear that background noise? So now I can turn my sensitivity down a little bit. Machine's completely stable. Turn my threshold up just a little bit. And right now I've still got that mosquito buzzing in my ear. So I have the ability to hunt the hotter mineralization, automatic ground balancing, automatic ground tracking, everything's ready to go. It took me 15, 20 seconds to make all the adjustments, a little bit longer if I'm sharing it with everybody, but now I'm ready to go and hunt this even hotter soil. And hear how quiet the machine is? Now with the machine being this quiet, any targets that I'm going to hit are really going to stand out. Loosen the soil up, pull everything back to me, get a nice big area, somewhere that I can get the coil into. Man, that is some red dirt. Check my magnet. Okay, target's out of the hole. Using the heel to toe method of pinpointing. Remember the nut I found earlier? There's the bolt to go with it. The Minelab Eureka Gold, 3 frequency power, automatic ground balancing, automatic ground tracking, the ability to set the tone to optimize it for my own personal hearing. The most powerful VLF gold detector on the marketplace. Only from Minelab, the world's best metal detection technologies.